Hi, I'm Kara Moulton, and my presentation is going to be debunking the myth that brain development has completed by the time an adolescent reaches puberty. This is false because we know that the brain does not finish developing until around the ages of 25 or 26, and sometimes for guys it's about later, the 26 age. And we know that the last piece of the brain to develop is the frontal lobe, which is the decision making and the kind of reasoning behind where the students are at. We know that this is important to teach our youth and how to take care of themselves, so that way as they are growing, they don't damage that last piece of their brain by adding substances or chemicals, and making sure that they take care of themselves in order to help the brain fully develop. According to the National Council for Behavioral Health, during adolescence, this is when a lot of development happens, not in just our physical and our emotional, but within our maturity as well. And so, for the mental changes, youth are developing more of those abstract thinking skills, using more logic and reasoning and decision making. And now they're starting to form their own beliefs. And so we know that when they are younger, they are kind of going from what is black and white to thinking about more what is outside the box and kind of that gray area, and that is part of that brain developing. So with knowing that this is a myth, teachers and administrators both can benefit from this, as well as all the students, because we know that they are still growing and of course are going to make mistakes as they are growing, and we encourage them to make mistakes because we want them to learn from that, and that helps with their resiliency as they are growing, which will help embrace who they are as they get older. They will not always know why they are doing what they're doing, and that's because their brain is not fully developed. And we want them to understand that when they are growing, it is okay to make those mistakes. That is how that brain is going to create those pathways and understand what is the best choice versus maybe what is the risky, not so good choice. According to the Understanding the Teen Brain website, adults think with the prefrontal cortex, and that is the brain's rational part. This is the part of the brain that also responds to situations with good judgment and an awareness of long-term consequences. Teens process information with the amygdala, and that is the emotional response part in the brain. In teens' brains, the connections between the emotional part of the brain and the decision-making part of the brain are still connecting and developing, and not always at the same rate. So that's why teens have that overwhelming emotional input that they can't explain right away, but they can later after they have time to sit and think about it. And they weren't thinking as much as they were feeling in that moment, and that's because that brain has not fully developed in that frontal lobe. So this is important for teachers to know about their students, because sometimes as adults we forget what it is like to be a teenager and what it is like growing up. And we know as we grow, every age range is very different, and every kind of area of where the teen is growing is very different from when we were growing up. Our students are growing up now with a lot of social media and a lot of impacts on how they are learning, with screen time versus non-screen time. The students are getting ready to become an adult at the age of 18, yet their brains are not fully developed until the ages of 25 or 26. So we know that that plays an impact on their learning as well, because they are considered an adult, but they are not yet fully developed. Coming from my area of work that I do, it is very important to me that teachers remember this, because if they see a change in a student that can last anywhere between a week to 2 weeks or longer with that mood or the behavioral change that has lasted up to that amount of 2 weeks or longer, then it could potentially be a case of a mental health challenge. And then of course we want to intervene to help get that student the supports that they need and to help them continue throughout life without the struggles that they have. As a certified trainer in youth mental health first aid and teen mental health first aid within the National Council, who has developed this program coming from Australia, we know that 1 in 5 of our youth will experience a mental health challenge by the time they are age 18. With that being said, we know that our students, if they are struggling with any social or emotional issues and challenges, they are not going to be able to continue academically, and we need to take a step back as educators to make sure we are helping our students grow within every area to make sure that those test scores do grow as well.